my name's Derek Scobie. I run a team in Google that crosses the bridge between the amazing content that gets made on YouTube by hundreds of thousands of creators and the ambitions that brands have on YouTube and throughout Google's ecosystem. My career, though, has mostly been in brand marketing, and for the last 16 or 17 years, I've been involved in building brands that are mostly non-digital. And I've come to a realization that the job 10, 20, 30 years ago was just much easier. It was just much easier to build brands. And I was thinking about some of the really iconic campaigns that have like driven brands into mainstream understanding, and it was just so much easier. I want to play a little video. Of one of those campaigns that I think like really kind of broke through one brand into public consciousness. Can we play the video, please? If you couldn't see at the back, I'm happy to do a demonstration of what Nick Kamen did in that ad. So that advert, I think, was 1981, 1982, and of course you'll say, oh, it's a great ad, probably a Cannes Lion winner back in its day. But that would be to not recognize how significant it was for Levi's and eventually the denim industry. At that time, denim was essentially workwear. Right? It wasn't considered fashionable, it wasn't considered rebellious, it was just workwear. They were in a three-way commoditized dogfight with Wrangler and Lee for global domination of something which was lowering in price every year, year on year for 2 decades. And through this ad, they did something remarkable. They injected a story into denim that had been missing. They made a reason to love denim that had been missing. And they reconnected it to a past that denim didn't really have. Like they made it the part of the rebellion. They made it part of the MTV generation that was appearing in the late 70s and into the early 80s. And through that, actually, Levi's managed to generate 2 decades worth of category leadership for themselves. And it was only when the likes of Diesel and G-Star out-innovated them, out-told the story that Levi's kind of got into a bit of trouble. And really, there's a number of brands where a single piece of genius creative has been the difference between them and the people that they leave in their wake. Think of the Guinness Horses ad, 1984 ad from Apple. There was a time when one single piece of genius creative could separate us from the rest of the audiences. And in some ways, I don't disagree that the same is true now, because the reality is our brands simply have to create an emotional resonance with customers for us to be able to lock in disproportionate value, disproportionate love for the functional stuff they are. Levi's made themselves more than cotton and rivets. They made themselves part of the lifestyle. And in some ways, that's still what we're trying to do. And what we're trying to do is to do that still over a longer period so we build love and trust over time. Even in today's world of instant gratification, the reality is you don't build love on a first date as a brand. It's something which happens over time. But lots of things have changed too. What's happened is suddenly consumers have unlimited choice. I go to quite a lot of industry events. I've been at Adweek a few times this week, and people talk about fragmentation like it's a bad thing. The world's fragmented media, fragmented content. Well, it's bad for us in the industry, but it's great for consumers. Right? It's not fragmentation, it's unlimited choice. They get what they want, where they want, when they want it, with whom they want to watch it, and whom they want to connect. So when we talk about fragmentation, they're thinking about choice. And that's made a huge change in how we're able to connect those brands that were perhaps successful with a single piece of genius creative. They knew that by putting that on at a certain time on a few networks, they could reach the vast majority of people who might put their hands in their, at that time, non-denim pockets to pay for their product, which today would be much harder to do. And what we find is I mean, here's an example I was coming from the airport in Helsinki 2 weeks ago, and the guy was honestly driving, watching the Champions League in his car, right? And I said to him, do you not find that dangerous? He said, it's less dangerous than asking my wife to turn on the football. Brilliant. I was like, yeah, I really get that. But this is a choice. And if we'd had the guys for the last session on stage for longer, I mean, they would tell you like the vast amounts of content they can consume because there's vast amounts of content made available to them. And that's a real challenge for us in terms of building brands. And it means that one of the questions we get asked most of all at YouTube is, how do you give me a little bit more than what my TV plan gives me? And we can do that. Because we reach younger audiences, we reach connected audiences better than TV does, we can add incrementally to TV plans. But the reality of it is, if that's all we're focused on, then you're not going to get the full value out of this change, this revolution that's happening in content consumption. And what we want to do is we want to look at how can we not just win the eyeballs, but win the hearts through digital brand building. And from Google's point of view, we spent a long time thinking about this. We've traditionally been known as a performance advertising platform. So we help you surface the intent of customers through search and then convert that through great products like Google Analytics. But with YouTube, we've had an opportunity to think more broadly about how do we build emotional cases, emotional storytelling opportunities for you and your brands. And these are 3 areas that we think we can really help with: finding the right people, telling great stories, and building stronger relationships. So in terms of finding the right people, having worked in brand marketing for going on for 20 years, the reality is true, which is it's not about new stuff. It's about being able to do things in more accurate ways, being able to pinpoint individual customers in a way we've never been able to do. It's about being able to get rid of the proxies that we've had to use, like demographic targeting or income-based targeting, when we can actually have a more direct or one-to-one relationship with customers. Data still plays an increasingly valuable role in this. My colleague Phil Miles is going to talk about this a lot more, so I won't. But I think the job that we've got to do still is taking the vast amounts of data that I'm sure many of your companies create, the vast amount of data we create, the vast amount of data that other sources create, and how do we put them all together to forge much more powerful insights that we can use to help make sure our brand building efforts are as focused as they can be. As well as data, it can be about context. People talk about context as though it was a function, but actually what we see on YouTube is becoming a home for the world's passions. The channels which are most successful on YouTube are the ones that find audiences that are really passionate about what they do, and the creators and the communities connect to make those passions happen. So that might be Acado sponsoring Jamie Oliver's original content on YouTube. It could be Wiggle sponsoring the Global Cycling Network. It can be a bunch of different partnerships that exist to create a connection between what your brand does and the passion that the creator and their community are showing. And it can also be about choice. So choice-based advertising is something we've put a lot of engineering resource behind. A couple of years ago, we launched TrueView. It's a suite of products which allow the user to choose not to watch the advert by skipping the ad. I'm sure you've all seen that in your personal journeys on YouTube. And then essentially, they still get the content that they want to watch without penalty. Importantly, the advertiser only pays when the person watches their ad to completion, or at least 30 seconds of that. So the idea is that it's a fair environment for the consumer. They get what they want without being penalized, and a fair environment for the advertiser. Lots of people don't like this kind of advertising, lots of people in the media and marketing industry, because it really kind of hits at the shibboleths within our industry. But we think that by creating this environment, it's better for users, and therefore in the long run, better for you and your brands. This also requires us to think differently about our creative process. So I want to share an example from Superdrug, where they really thought about the native role of TrueView advertising. We can play the video, please.
Right now at Superdrug, there's better than half-price Nivea and Soleil Sun Care. That's it. You can watch a Dancing Cats video now. Go on, I told you about the great offers on sun cream at Superdrug, so you can press skip. Skip off, or whatever it's called. Oh, no, wait, there's also great prices on the Beat Wax range. Brilliant. Right, you definitely can skip off now. What are you waiting for? What, another offer? OK, let's see, there's 3 for 2 cosmetics, and there's Rimmel Sun Trimmer for $2.99. Look, if you want any more, you've got to go to superdrug.com. Enjoy your Dancing Cats video.
So it's a little bit of fun, but what they've done is they've realised that people consume the content differently on YouTube, and they've made an ad which is quite compelling to them. That actually delivered 50% more view-throughs, so right the way through, than our average benchmark. So although they were telling people to skip off, they didn't, which is good for Superdrug and good for my paycheck as well, but it's another thing. But choice-based ads in our TrueView suite, we really believe it's a great way to build brands, which is right for users, but also incredibly efficiently for advertisers. But it doesn't really matter about finding the right people if we don't have a great story to tell them. The first thing to say is that Google's not going to tell you how to tell your brand story. Actually, brands have been great at this from 150 years worth of brand development. We make people care about stuff they shouldn't care about. Why is one shampoo better than another? Why is one mobile phone better than another? Actually, these things are largely not something that users should really care about, but that's the great power of brands. So we already tell great stories. What we want to do is help brands tell those stories in even better ways. How can we use the technology that's available to improve the way you can tell your brand story rather than telling you the story you should tell? And there's a couple of thoughts here. So one is that what YouTube and online video allows you to do is take away some of the artificial constructs that have kind of limited our storytelling to date. There's no reason why you should have to tell your story in 30 seconds, other than the fact that 30 seconds is the predominant length of time that the networks would like you to make your stories so they fit into ad breaks. There's very good reasons why the networks want them to be 30 seconds, and I can understand them from their commercial imperative. But increasingly, brands are realizing their audiences would tolerate much longer stories from them. And a great example is Dove, so Titanium winner at Cannes last year, but we could also talk about Volvo Trucks. We could also talk about Nike and Adidas as we prepare for the World Cup. We talk about brands who realize that their audiences will stay with them for way longer than 30 seconds. The Dove Sketches video is 3 minutes, 1 second. Ogilvy actually refused to make a cut down for the UK market when they said they needed a 30. They said this story doesn't go into 30 seconds. It's a 3 minute, 1 second video. And that was what they tested, that's what consumers loved, and that's what they ran with, and that's what created like an already advertising legend. And I'm not saying that you should all run long video, but I think you should start with what's the right story to tell, and what's the story length that the audience will tolerate from us, that they would get most out of from us and be most likely to react to, rather than starting with somebody else's constraint. And online video allows you to do that. It also allows you to potentially reinvent the experience. So as well as YouTube, we also think a lot about social, Google Plus being our platform, but also just thinking about the overall ecosystem. And reinventing your brand experience online, especially if we have tactical brands. I spent some time last week with Louis Vuitton. I spent some time with the Nespresso team the last few weeks, and they really see their brands as tactile brands. Like it's about experiencing them in all the senses. So even the sight, sound, and motion of video kind of isn't enough, they feel, to be able to really get the value from their brand building. So Topshop took a stab at that by including things like live hangouts, being able to connect audiences with designers, being able to connect audiences with models and one-to-one connections through Hangouts and the Google Plus social platform as a way of being able to kind of go further. We can't quite get to smell-o-vision, but what we can do is we can start to make it more than just a passive viewing experience and start to make it more of an engaged experience. And I'm sure that many of you have tactile brands or brands which are way more experiential than just an image or some text or a video can do. And there are ways of being able to do that online which aren't really possible through traditional means. There's also ways of creating not just a piece of content, a piece of film to share, but actually start a conversation. I'm a pretty sad guy. I spend a lot of time gathering up crap ads from YouTube. I do this quite often. And then what I do is I send them to people and say, your ad is crap. And then they don't like me for a bit, and then they ask me to help. And it's all... Anyway, so this is from BMW. I don't mind giving BMW a slag, and they have one of the largest channels on YouTube, so they're doing pretty well. And they sell quite a few cars. But they had this promoted, what's called a promoted video ad, and it says 381 HP 740 NM something. Now, thumbnails drive about 30% of your choice to watch a video. 30%, regardless of what you put in that bit next to it, 30% of the views come directly from what's in that thumbnail. So it's pretty important. And I read that and I thought, that is crap. That's one of the worst thumbnails I've ever seen. And so I thought, right, I'm going to copy and paste this, put it into my crap ads folder. And I clicked through. And then I watched this short video. And this short video, it started to show me the great engineering of their engine. And I was nonplussed by this. Then I remembered, I don't like cars. Right? I have the most beat up Toyota Corolla you can imagine. We only have it because it's the shortest wheelbase 7-seater car that my wife wanted because she just passed the test. Anyway, I don't like cars. And then I realized I didn't really enjoy that video. But this thing came up, which is called bit of in-video programming. So I clicked through to that just to see how much I didn't like cars. And it took me through to a longer video, which kind of gave more understanding of the car. And then I realized this was actually a genius bit of advertising from BMW. Because what they were doing, they were deselecting anybody who didn't know what 381 HP 780 NM meant. Right? You're selling a 30 or 40,000 pound car. If you don't know that that means whatever horsepower and whatever else, then we're not going to convert you by showing you a video of the car going around an Italian hillside. Right? So what they're doing is they deselect a bunch of people, getting people through here who are more likely to be receptive to the BMW message. Then when they've watched that short video, they're looking for the people who want to know more, and then they get them through to a longer video. And what they can be doing is using like remarketing, collecting lists and segmenting that audience at different stages to understand, where do I focus my money? Well, I probably focus my immediate sales opportunity here, and I might invest more with the people we got through here. These guys are receptive, but there's something which is causing a barrier for them. I'm going to go back to them with something else, and I might just avoid everybody else. So what they're doing is they're creating a conversation by having multiple bits of advertising or content and then segmenting based on that. So think about conversation. But ultimately, all this stuff, it only matters if we can build a relationship which allows us to kind of pass them down our sales funnel or our brand funnel. And building relationships over time is still absolutely vital to brand marketers. I think the way that we are able to build those relationships has changed dramatically. Social's played a role in that, but also the data that Phil will talk about and the ability to more accurately identify people has made a huge difference. Here's a few thoughts on how we might change the relationship. So one thing is that we're moving into a world where brands need to consider content rather than advertising as their main way of engaging with customers. And we spend a lot of time thinking about this on YouTube. Ads are great. Content, I think, can be much better. It can, the Dove Sketches ad is not really advertising. It's content that people chose to engage with for 3 minutes and 1 second. And I think they had something like 60% of all of the 180 million views went to more than half the length of that video. So people choosing to engage for a long period of time with the advertising. When we think about content for brands, we think about 3 different types of content. We think about hero, hub, and hygiene content. And very simply, hero content is what we're good at anyway. Campaigns that are like fireworks. We set them off in the sky, they have a relatively short lifespan, and we need to reach a certain target in a certain period of time. So hero content on YouTube could be Felix Baumgartner jumping from space, could be Dove Sketches, it could be something that you're already running on television. Importantly, it's usually driven by advertising because we have clear targets in a short period of time. Hub content is what YouTube superstars are great at. Regular reasons to come back day after day or week after week based on episodic programming. So thinking about what we might produce as brand entertainment or what we might produce as something which has more value than just being a brand message. That's actually where brands probably struggle the most at the moment, is finding ways of being genuinely entertaining with audiences. And hygiene content, which actually should be quite straightforward for all of us. Hygiene content is answering the questions that people are asking through search. So people, a good example is Unilever recently launched a channel on YouTube called All Things Hair. What it does is it sweeps the 7 billion or so hair tutorial searches that happen in the world each year, categorizes them, and essentially they're making video content with YouTube partners that address those searches that are happening, or the largest of those searches that are happening. Smartly, actually, then they're lining up their vast array of hair care brands to advertise against them based on which ones would be best for the style. But you can do that if you're alcoholic beverage manufacturer and you want to work out which cocktails you should be making. Screwfix do it for parts for DIY. There's a whole bunch of different ways in which you can look at search in a different way as stimulus for your content and grab some share of attention there. So content matters. What also matters is make sure that we use the digital platforms we have, like YouTube, in the ways that they're best able to be used, not just how we use other platforms. I would say that still most advertisers on YouTube syndicate television copy onto YouTube, and I'm fine, I'll take your money for that, but the reality is it's an engagement platform. If you don't have links from that content to what you want them to do, i.e. to go and buy stuff from your sites, or go and connect to your CRM program, or go and visit your places elsewhere, then you're not taking full advantage of what the platform offers. So making sure you do the simple stuff, like add the opportunity to drive reactions from customers and get more of the value from the platform. And then also think about it from a an affordability point of view. So with TrueView, we've made it really efficient to make sure the people that you pay for are people who are watching your ads. That actually gives you an opportunity to break away from some of the problems we have with broadcast, which is ratings are expensive, it's hard to stay on there for any length of time, even though I know that people are buying my products or my competitors' products every day of the year. And instead we think that through YouTube and online platforms, actually we can make it way more efficient to stay there over time. By using remarketing, by using means of segmenting those audiences, like we saw in the BMW example, we can make it even more efficient still, so that we make sure we are getting smart and cleverer each time about who we are driving our stories against. So that was just a really quick whistle-stop tour on some of the thoughts we have around building brands through our platforms and digitally. The focus is, can we make sure we can find the right people, tell great stories, and build stronger relationships? That's me. Thank you very much.